And I was like, oh, I thought like other people were going to really take on my queer journey and I was going to explore it with other people. But that didn't happen. And I think it was a blessing because I really had time to think about what my queerness meant for me.
What's up, my bis and allies? It's Talia here with Bisexual Behavior. I'm so excited for this month's episode. I got to talk to someone really special. But first, I want to say Happy Black History Month. It's a great time to make sure that you're supporting local organizations that are giving back to Black and marginalized communities. I am definitely going to link to a couple of great resources in my area. It's also great to make sure that you're supporting Black creators and amplifying their voices. Also, make sure that queer spaces in your area are open to everyone. This episode is going to be really special for all my astrology fans out there. If you are not familiar, Astrology is a great bisexual meme account. Also, Charmeé is the host of Bi Hot Summer, which is such a great podcast. You must listen to it. Charmeé is also a writer. She published Confessions of a Bisexual, which is a really great interactive resource for my baby gays out there and baby bisexuals. This is such a great conversation. I'm so excited to share it with you all. So without further ado, here's Charmeé. Hello.
Hello,
Charmeé, welcome.
Here.
I'm so excited to have you. Oh my gosh.
I'm so excited to be here. I just feel like the energy is just so bisexual right now. It's like gonna combust.
It's impeccable. It's very bisexual. I have been so excited to talk to you. I actually I've known about you for a while, so I found your account by Astrology and then discovered that you have a podcast called Hot Bi Summer. And I've been trying to build the confidence to reach out to you to have you on the podcast. Yes, I'm a little embarrassed, but I am glad to finally get you on. I was like, I need Charmeé on.
Yeah, no, I'm so excited. I'm honored that I'm on. I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is cool. I'm bisexual behavior. This is exciting. So it's so funny how we build up people in our heads, but in reality, it's just you're here. We're bi. We're talking, you know? Yeah, so it's great.
We're here. I'm so pumped. So I'm just going to introduce myself really quick for the listeners, and then you can go ahead. My name is Talia. My pronouns are she, her. I'm cis. I'm bisexual as hell, and happy to be here. Oh, and since we're going to be talking about astrology, I am a Virgo, so.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
There's so much to unpack there. There's so much
Virgo
to unpack
power.
there. Yeah. Do you know what your rising and your moon is?
Yes, I wrote it down. So I'm going to admit I am prepared, Charmeé. I am ready. So
As a Virgo should.
This is very Virgo of me, actually. I've been told that I'm very much a Virgo, but apparently my rising is Cancer.
Oh.
We'll have to unpack what that means.
Yeah.
My moon is a Sagittarius.
Ooh, okay, you're funny.
I like to have a good time. I like to make jokes.
Yes, you do like to have fun. You do like to make jokes. A famous celebrity whose moon is in Sagittarius is Keke Palmer. So just
I love her.
And she's
so
a Virgo
much.
sun. Oh my God, and she's a Virgo sun. Yes.
I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed.
I don't know what her rising is. I would probably say some sort of earth sign rising, but that is so cool. So you're Keke Palmer. Hi, I'm Keke Palmer.
I could aspire to be Keke Palmer. I actually saw she was tweeting about her playing The Sims, and I was like, I'm obsessed with her.
I saw that. She was like, EA Games, I have a question for you. And I was like, okay, use that power, girl. Use that platform.
The only thing for a while of what I knew about my birth chart, just my birthday in general, is that I share a birthday with Beyonce, and that is my biggest humble brag ever.
So September 4th.
Yes, that's my birthday. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is a big brag. I would say I have Beyonce's birthday, so I'm perfect.
That's really my biggest brag for sure.
Wow.
What about you? Let's hear about you.
Okay, let's hear about me. So I'm a Scorpio sun. I'm a Gemini rising, and I'm a Leo moon. So we both share fire moons, which means we're a good time. Gemini rising, I talk a lot, which is why I have a podcast, but also I talk a lot and people are like, okay, she's loud. She has this very big, rambunctious personality. I just thought that's just the way that I was, like, even as a kid. I was like, oh, I just talk a lot, da da da. And now I'm like, oh, astrologically, I'm meant to talk and speak and be out in the world.
That's
And
right.
yeah, and Scorpio sun. So I'm a little guarded, a little secretive about what's actually going on. But I'll talk anybody's ear off. I'll be like, ah, la, 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 la. So yeah, it's great.
Well, I'm happy to chat with you.
I'm happy to be here.
So you are the creator of Bi Astrology. You have written a book, Confessions of a Bisexual, which I love that it's interactive. That's so cool. And you're an
Yeah.
actor. So what got you to start Bi Astrology?
Yeah, so I started by astrology because I was very much in the closet, very much in the closet. And I didn't want people to know that I was like, because at that time, it was 2019. And at that time, I didn't want people to know because Instagram had this new feature where you could see who liked people's posts. So I didn't want people to know that I was like liking like hot people, hot girls' posts. And I was like, I don't want people to know. I'm a Scorpio. I don't want them to know the tea. So I made this new account and it was kind of like my Finsta. I would joke on it on my like personal page and I'd be like, follow my Finsta, ha ha ha. But yeah, it was really a Finsta. And then I started doing like, I don't know, graphics, like infographic type stuff, like being bi is a gift. And it's like, it didn't get any engagement because people were like, that's cool, but like, what am I going to do with this information? And then I was listening
Right.
to a podcast by Aliza Kelly, who's a really incredible astrologer. And she had on these like these girls from, I want to say, there's so many like meme pages, but theirs was I guess I could look it up, but theirs was incredible. And they almost have like 1 million followers. But they were on the podcast and they were talking about shareability. And that was like in the back of my head. And I was like, okay, shareability. You need things that people are going to share. And then the pandemic hit and I had a lot of time to think. And I lived back at home. And I was like, I feel like my experience as a bisexual is so weird and specific and niche. And I like oat milk and like I do certain things. And then I posted about it and people were like, I do that. You do that? And so it just became this like community. So that's how I started by astrology.
Amazing. So that actually brings me to my regular question. I must know, what is your most bisexual behavior?
My most bisexual behavior, ooh, there's so many things. There are so many things. I think my most bisexual, I would say right now, the moon was just in Pisces. So I would say making playlists for people as a love language is like
Oh my
I
God.
love doing that. It's like if you have ever received a playlist from me, it is an honor. It's a privilege. I don't just hand out these playlists to anybody. So yeah, making a playlist as a love language for sure. Most bisexual thing.
I'm the same way. Like my way of flirting is sending a playlist. Like I
Yeah.
have a string of like playlists that I've made for people I was dating, which is funny. So
Yeah.
what artists are you listening to right now?
That's so funny that you asked that. I was just on the phone with, I was going to say just on the FaceTime. I don't know why I sounded like I was a boomer. I was just FaceTiming my brother, who is Gen Z, and he's like creating this really cool app, whatever. Not whatever, but he's like a super smart, brilliant kid. And he was talking about how he has this really cool like playlist that he generated. And I was like, this is the most like bisexual app I've ever seen. He's like, I know. And so we were talking about all of the like I guess Spotify comes up with a bunch of like playlists and artists that you'll like, and I love Kehlani. That came up. I love
Mm,
Beyonce. I'm looking at my
yes.
wall right now. I have a wall of albums, so I'm like Kehlani, Beyonce. I love Umi as well, who is this like Pisces, like yeah, really incredible artist who I met in real life, which was really
Oh, really?
cool.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
so
she was
cool.
in
Oh my
LA.
God.
Yeah, that happens a lot in LA. You'll like be like,
Oh,
"Oh, I'm really into this like niche like R&B artist that I feel like nobody knows about who has like maybe 10,000 followers. Like nobody knows about these people." And then you run into them at like a party and you're like, "You're so cool." And like the next year they blow up. So it's very cool.
that's amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're a big R&B fan. Do you know Steve
Huge.
Lacy?
Oh, love.
I'm
Love Steve
obsessed.
Lacy.
And
I
he's
love
bisexual. Oh,
He is bi, he's a Gemini, he's a
that's
bisexual
right.
Gemini.
Stream
I
Gemini
mean,
rights.
Yes, exactly. 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 Free promo for this Gemini. I love it.
That's right. So, have you always been really into astrology? Or is that like a new thing that you got into?
It's very new, actually. I got into it right before the pandemic. Like, like Ignorance is Bliss 2019, 2018. I had a friend that was super into it who was I thought she was a full-on astrologer at the time. But I realized that she was learning as she was like talking to me, but she was so confident and like I was like, "Oh, wow, she knows what she's talking about." So she basically told me things that I had never expressed out loud. She like did a reading of my chart. And I grew up super Christian, so I wasn't allowed to like it was like tarot cards and the devil and demons. I was like, I'm not allowed to talk about this. But then, I live in LA now where it's just like, you just go to a coffee shop and they've got a tarot reader and a astrologer there to make you a perfect playlist and a oat milk latte. But so she was talking to me about my chart and she like broke it down and she expressed things that I had never verbally said out loud ever, like things that I had thought when I was a kid. And she was like, and this is really important to you and this is really important. And I had never met this girl. This is like the first time meeting her and she wanted to go through my chart and I was like, this is wild, like I need to get on this. So I got really into it, and that's the same time as I was kind of like understanding my sexuality, and then I started by astrology, and I've really been learning like as I've been posting, honestly.
No, it's so crazy because I didn't really know a lot about astrology and I'm still learning. But when I came out and I started dating women and kind of, really embracing bisexuality is when I started really learning about astrology. And women would ask me like, "What's your natal chart?" And I was like, "What the hell is that?" So, for listeners who may be a little unfamiliar, how would you describe a natal chart and like what's important to look at?
Yeah, so a natal chart, i.e. birth chart, is a wheel. Oh, I'm thinking of Tracy Ellis Ross, like a wheel of lovers, but it's not a wheel of lovers. A birth chart or a natal chart is basically a summation of like a snapshot of the sky as you were coming into the world. So it's basically your sun, moon, rising, but it also has the houses where those all reside in. It's a place where you can find so many like incredible nuggets of your life, but it's basically just a giant wheel and it's broken down into 12 parts to represent the 12 zodiac signs, the houses. It truly is a snapshot of what was happening in the stars at the time that you were born. So yeah, it has a lot of great information.
Wow. So it sounds like all of that will impact different facets of your personality and how you present yourself in the world. And I think,
Absolutely.
is it rising how you come off to others? Like, what are the differences between the sun, moon, and rising?
Yeah, I would say your sun is like your forward facing, like, hi, I'm here type energy. I feel like I'm speaking in woo woo, but that's kind of what I feel like. That's what it is. Your rising is like your first impression. I think usually when I'm guessing somebody's zodiac sign, I'm like, I typically guess their rising sign. And they're like, no, that's not it. And then they'll be like, oh, my sun is this, but my rising is. I'm like, I picked up. I know my Scorpio knows. And your moon is like your emotional world. And so, especially when you're dating somebody, that's really good information to like know how to navigate how that person operates. Even if people don't necessarily believe in astrology, not that you would need to, it doesn't even matter if you believe in it or not. It's really more about how you navigate the world, like you said, and also your emotional worlds, how you navigate emotional conflict, like how you exist in the world is really what astrology is used for.
Yeah, and what I like about it is it's like kind of an alternative form of like having something to believe in when you don't feel like you kind of fit into a certain religion or a different a type of community. I feel like astrology tends to be what people like, especially queer people, gravitate to. So, which leaves me to wonder, like, why is astrology so queer?
Yeah.
It is so queer. I feel like it's really like even being on dating apps, that was like the main thing is everyone was really big on astrology and asking what your signs are, what your natal chart is. What is it like with LA dating and astrology? Do you find that it's very similar there?
It's like intensified, like times a million bajillion. And people will say, like, I've had people, I mean, they didn't say it to me, but I've had people I looked at people's dating like, you know, their pages, and they'll say like will not date a Pisces but wants a Gemini to hold them. Like, you know, it's like very specific. It's like so specific. It's so real. Um and I hope that everybody uses it to navigate their own wounds and help them. But sometimes I feel like people use it in a strange sort of way, which I think is people can do it in any sort of way. It, you know, it ebbs and flows. It can be good. It can be bad. It can be whatever. But in LA, navigating dating, astrology is like step one in the process for sure. It's like, okay, what's your sun, moon, rising? Okay, next, you know, let's navigate things from there. So yeah.
Wow. So, where can someone get started if they wanted to learn more about astrology? Are there certain resources out there?
There are so many resources. There are actually too many. It's like overwhelming sometimes. But I would start with Cafe Astrology. Put in your birth time if you have that information. Put that information in, and really just I wouldn't get too caught up in like the degrees or asteroids or anything like that. I would say start off with your like sun, moon, rising, and a really good app that is my favorite app on the face of the planet is the Channy app. That's an astrologer, Channy Nichols or Nicholas, I forget how to say her name, but she's an astrologer who is absolutely incredible. She's queer. She sees the world through like social justice and things of that nature. That's really, really important. Like she'll say certain things on her. She's not the one necessarily doing it, but you'll get notifications of like today's a great day for social justice. Really get out there and vote. You know, like it's like Libra is trining Saturn. Like make sure you get out and vote. And so it's just like really great because it's through the lens of like social justice. Is through the lens of queerness, whether it's like benevolent or in, you know, like actually what's intended. It's just very cool to see that kind of astrology out in the world. But I love the Channy app. I
For
would use
sure.
that. I would use Cafe Astrology. Be very conscious of the type of astrology that you are consuming. So if it's just white astrologers, if it's just these types of people, think about why you're only consuming that. There's a lot of
Right.
incredible Black queer astrologers that have YouTube channels, that have Twitter, that have Instagram, that you can give to their Patreon, who are really truly incredible. So I'd start with Cafe Astrology and really try to look for Black queer and queer astrologers.
Cool. I'll link to some of this in my show notes and find some good astrologers to link to as well. So that's a
Yes, I've
great
got some
start
good
for
ones.
sure. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it sounds like astrology was a big part of coming into your queerness and bisexuality. Do you want to talk more about kind of your coming out journey and how you got there?
Yeah, coming out. Ooh, that was a rough
Heavy
little
question.
time there. Heavy question, because I feel like I don't know. I pictured my coming out to be like this really cool, fun event where I'm like, hey y'all, I'm a bad bitch. I have like I like all types of genders. Like I was so excited, and I thought it was going to be really fun, but I was not met with like the excitement that I thought I was going to be met with. I was really met with like people being like, huh? Like what? I don't get it. I don't understand it. And I'm like, wait, really? So basically, as I was kind of coming into myself and starting to understand my queerness and what that looked like for me, the pandemic happened. So I thought I was gonna be like out in these streets just having a grand old time in Los Angeles dating and figuring out what I like sexually and just like having just like this Scorpio blossoming moment. Like that's what I saw for myself. But then the pandemic happened, and I was not about to kiss some random person. Like, nah. No, 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 no. I have multiple planets in the sixth house, which is Virgo. So when it comes to like health, I'm like, let's be as cautious as humanly possible. So I
It's for
was
the
so
best, for sure.
cautious. It was for the best. It was for the best. um, but I wound up moving home to Pennsylvania, and I was like, oh, I thought my queerness was going to be in the hands of other people, and other people were going to really take on my queer journey, and I was going to explore it with other people, and I was going to fall in love and have these big queer awakenings with other people. But that didn't happen, and I think it was a blessing because I really had time to think about what my queerness meant for me, without being in a relationship, without really being like, oh, this person, I associate my coming out with this one person, or I associate my coming out with this relationship. Because queerness for me is not necessarily like be like being in some sort of relationship or being like, oh, it's, straightness with a seasoning of like different because I'm queer. Like, no, I think queerness is, it takes so many beautiful facets. And I had time to read a lot of queer literature, especially as I was writing my book when I came back after I lived in Pennsylvania. But it was really a time of me understanding myself and what queerness meant for me specifically, and how that intersected with my identity as being femme, as being Black. Um, as growing up, somebody said this on a TikTok. They were like, being a Black woman, you're outside of the gender binary. I was like, boo. And I'll never stop thinking about that. But that really influenced how I operated or how I do operate in the world. So yeah, that was kind of my coming out. And then, telling family and not telling family. And I thought I had to tell everybody. I was like, this is being truthful. Coming out means you're being truthful. And it's like, no. Coming out is about what you need in that moment. It's not about other people. But I felt this pressure to be like, okay, I got to tell this person, this person, this person. And I did tell people. And some people were cool and some people were rude. But ultimately I learned that it doesn't matter what other people think. Like, yes, it really actually like affected my mental health, what other people thought. But ultimately it came down to like, no, my coming out is about me. It's like my coming into. It's not coming out, it's coming into, which I talk about in my book. But yeah.
That's amazing. So well spoken, first of all. I think we came out around the same time because I came out right before the
Really?
pandemic too. So I started dating one person and then we broke up when the pandemic really started to happen because we kind of weren't agreeing on how we wanted to handle the whole situation. And then I
Oh.
started to kind of virtually date, which was weird to go on Zoom dates. But I think what you're saying about kind of just going through queerness yourself and understanding what it means for you before dating someone, because I think a lot of times somebody will put all of their coming outness on their partner or
Yes.
not really understand themselves. So when they're in a relationship with someone of the same sex or in a queer relationship, it can be, there's a lot of pressure. So I think it's really great that you got the time to yourself and you got to really reflect, and especially through your book. So it sounds like you wrote it before you moved back to LA, you said?
Yeah, I wrote it actually right as I came back to LA. So I was like, before I came back, I was like, I feel it in my soul. I feel like I'm going to manifest a book. And I was like, I'm manifesting a book. I don't know where the publisher's coming from. I feel it in my soul. I feel it in my spirit. My Scorpio intuition is like poking, poking, poking. I'm like, okay, this is what's happening, period. And then I came back to LA and somebody reached out to me and it unfolded in the most perfect way. But yeah, I wrote it when I came back to LA after that experience of living in Pennsylvania, but I was still very much a baby gay. I think honestly, I was thinking about it today. Actually, not today. I was thinking about it a couple like weeks ago. I was like, wow, I hadn't had any sexual like queer experiences with anybody when I wrote that book. That's so like I was just like,
Oh,
wow, like I wrote, and then I remember like I had like my very first queer like sexual experience like right as I was like finishing up edits, and I was like, this is wild. Like, because it just showed me that queerness has very little to do with sex, even though that's what we're told. It has very little to do with sex and very much to do
yes.
with identity and who you are as a person.
100%. You see people saying about like, well, who cares if you're bisexual, if you're in, a hetero relationship, or if, you haven't had those sexual experiences. But I keep telling people it's more than just sex. It's a big part of your identity. And there's so many nuances to bisexuality. And it's also such a broad sexuality that there's so many different types of experiences too, which is like one of my favorite things about being bisexual is that anyone can have different experiences or have a different preference, or bisexually can mean something different to them. So it's so cool that you're saying that. I think you actually posted a video very recently where you were talking about how you came out a little bit later in life, you were saying,
Yeah,
and how you didn't get any resources on queer sex,
no.
which I had the same experience. I mean, like, you know that it's not cool to ask like two lesbians how they have sex, but like at the time I was also like, wait, but really, like, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to be a top? Like the bottom dynamic really freaked me out. Like I was like, how do you, am I supposed to buy a strap? Like what's the deal? So like if somebody else is in that position, would how would you recommend that they feel confident in their, being queer and jumping into having sex with other queer people?
I would say, first of all, look within yourself,
Mhm.
because I think I don't know. I get so like protective of people because I'm like people will tell you wrong things, and they'll tell you wrong things because their own experience with sex was in a very specific way. And I
Mhm.
think before you can really like experience like good sex with another person, you gotta have good sex with yourself. So I would say
For sure.
look within yourself, literally and figuratively. But also I read as a Gemini rising, I like eat up material. I'm like, I want all of the documents. I want all of the books. I want all the things. So I didn't read the whole thing, but I would like I would like skim through this one book. It's called Girl Sex, which is very inclusive, very, very
Ooh,
inclusive.
okay.
And it talks about strap ons, it talks about fingering, it talks about when to cut your nails. It talks about all this stuff, which is great. But also, as a femme, which I don't have nails on today, but as a femme who like typically wears nails, I'm like, you don't gotta cut your nails. You just gotta like be creative. Like, I think the
For
cool thing
sure.
about queer sex is like there's a lot to do. I have a friend who we both have Scorpio Marses, so we're kind of like freaky deeks. But we both like talk about all of our little tips and tricks, and she's like always telling me stuff and I'm always telling her stuff. But yeah, you just have to be very, very creative and try things out, and also have like, I don't know, get a partner who's not going to be judgmental towards you. And if
Mhm.
you feel any sort of judgment or some weird vibes, you don't have to take that just because you think that love is scarce or queer sex is scarce. I was always so scared. I was like, this is going to be my one chance to have sex. I just can't mess it up. And it's like, okay, like mess it up, be messy. This is the time to be messy. So yeah, that's what I would say. Buy
Yeah,
books, explore with yourself, and get creative.
that's right. And I feel like I was surprised by how much I already knew by just,
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
just having the same anatomy or even just like listening to the other person. I think that's like the biggest thing is like it's all about communicating. You can master some kind of position, but it's not going to work for everyone. So that's another
Exactly.
thing I learned. And toys are great was one of the biggest things that I've learned for sure.
Yeah, toys are a fun little addition. It's
They
great. I
are.
agree. I
And I feel
agree.
like that's the fun thing about being queer too is like all different types of sex are way more normalized than when you're just in a hetero relationship, and a lot of times it's the intercourse is the expected. There might be the what they call foreplay, which is also just sex, but it's
Yeah.
just that's what I love about being queer is that sex is really so broad, and usually your partner would be open to trying different things to pleasure you, which is really cool.
Absolutely. And I've also noticed with my friends who are in more hetero looking or appearing relationships that are queer, they'll talk to me about their sex lives and I'll be like, that's so queer that that you're doing this together. And they're like, yeah, I know. And so I just think it's so cool that especially bisexuals are just so resourceful and so incredibly creative. We're so creative when it comes to so many things. Sex is just the tip of the iceberg. There's so many other things that we're creative at. But yeah, it's just creativity is our forte. It really is in
For
any
sure.
facet.
That's so true, so true. Have you found as you've started to date more that people are typically not as welcoming to finding out that you're bisexual, or do you find that people really embrace it? Because I've had, from my experience, I think people typically, when I've mentioned that I've dated men before, they find it as like a threat, or they're like, "Oh, well, I hope you're not sleeping with men now," and like there's always that awkward conversation. And it's not all the time where I get this, but I find that that has been something that I guess I didn't really expect going into
Yeah.
dating.
Yeah. I was more self-conscious of this when I was first coming out,
Mhm.
and like first on those dating apps. I was like, "Ooh, okay, this is different." But I listened to another podcast where this guy was basically saying, like, if you're a baby gay, just put that in your bio. Like, put, hey, I'm new to this in your
Mhm.
bio. And now there's like app, like features on the app where you can be like, I'm bisexual. So it like already says it. So you don't have to like have that weird conversation, which is really helpful. But I found that, yeah, people are really weird about that type of stuff. But I cut those people off so quick, like so quick. And to be fair, like, I don't really, I say I don't have a type, but then like I think about the people I've dated, I'm like, girl, you got a type. But I don't
Same,
really have a
honestly.
type, but if I did have a type, it'd be bisexuals. So typically I date other bisexuals, so it's not really that, it's not a big deal
Mhm.
to us, because we're like, we already know, like, we're not, I'm not threatened, I'm not gonna be threatened by cis man, like you, I mean, I don't want to be I don't know how to say this in a nice way, but like, I, I'll say this, I'm very confident in my skills, like extremely confident in my skills. I didn't used to be that way. So this is like, 4 years later. I didn't used to be that way.
Takes
But
time.
it does take time. But I am
Mhm.
extremely confident in my skills. And if you're gonna leave me for a man, I'm like, dang, I feel bad for you. You have lack of judgment. I don't think I can be in a relationship with somebody like that. Like, I'm so sorry that you felt that way. So I'm personally not threatened by it,
Yes.
but it's because I'm confident in myself. I'm confident in my skills. I know that I bring so much to the table. And so I'm like, okay, well, I already know this. But yeah, that's how I feel. But I also have I mean, I've got a Leo moon, so I could be walking around with a paper bag. I'm like, I'm the baddest bitch with a paper bag. But that's just
No, but that's the
maybe it's
mentality
overconfidence.
everyone should have. Like, everyone should feel that way and be like, well, if they're going to leave me, it's their loss, instead of just like, oh, my world's going to end if they like leave me for a man or whatever.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine. Yeah, I want to say some mean things, but I'm not going to be mean. I'm not going to be mean. The moon's in Aries, but I'm not going to be mean. I just feel like I'm very confident in my skills and I'm very confident in myself. There was a time where I would be like super insecure about people who did have more. I was never insecure about like somebody leaving me for a man. Like, if you want to do that, good for you, whatever. But I was more insecure about people that had more experience in
Mhm.
queer relationships and queer sex. Like, that was more triggering to me, because I just felt like, well, I'm never gonna be at that level. um Now I'm just like, you're never gonna get the Charmeé experience from somebody else. Like, whether it's a man, whether it's a woman, like whether they're not, you're not gonna get the Charmeé experience from anybody else. But I'm confident because, not necessarily because I have queer experience, but because I realize that I am really powerful. I'm a powerful person, and nobody can really take that away from you.
That's right.
So,
That's
mhm.
badass.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
This is
yeah.
a really good transition for a brand new segment. I mentioned this to you before we started to record, but I am testing out a new segment that's called Found on Reddit. And basically, what I'm doing, so first of all, I'm a huge Reddit person. I don't know if you follow Reddit at all, but the bisexual subreddit was like a huge part of my coming out journey. And I still follow it and I see a lot of the same questions on it. And I thought it would be really nice to kind of go through different topics that people are talking about and kind of discuss it ourselves. And I found one that talks a lot about queer dating. And I'm going to read
Ooh.
it and then we can kind of talk about what we think about it. All
Okay,
right.
I'm here for it.
Okay. Okay. So this one's called 29 Female Trying to Date Women for the First Time with the melting face emoji. So I didn't realize I was bi until late in high school. Even then, by that point, I kind of had picked up that I should have been having crushes on guys. So that's what I did and put off a lot of it subconsciously to not make other girls uncomfortable. After realizing this, I realized it was just easier to continue with what I knew and didn't even know any LGBTQ in my town. I've been out for a decade, but still. I've used dating apps as my typical source of finding people, and when I match with a woman, I just have no idea how to interact. I don't know if it's just nerves, excitement, or anxiety. With guys, I just know the algorithm of things to do, at least on a less deep scale, and say and know what to act. I now have friends with a lot of LGBT people, but they have no advice with the crying, laughing emoji face. TLDR, first time trying to talk to other women. I'm fucking awkward and I don't know what to say. First thoughts, reactions, or anything you want to say, just initially me reading that.
Yeah, I would say first thoughts are I've been there. I was there.
Same.
I know exactly how that feels. Um, yeah, that's so real. That is so
So
like that.
real.
I felt like you got that from my diary. Did you read that specifically from my own journal?
That's literally what I was thinking when I read that. And like, I think one of the first comments was like, girl, same. And it said, it's hard, unfortunately, to talk to people as a friend, ask about their day and find common interests. When I figure out flirting, I'll let you know, which I thought was like how I would respond to.
Yeah.
But I find that like when I first started dating women, I would get in this habit of being like so friendly and nice to them, like they were a friend. And then we would get in this thing where we were talking all the time, but we weren't flirting. And then we would just kind of like just stay there and be like, wait,
Yeah.
who's going to make the move? Because I think like I used to date women, so I'm used to the idea of like a male courting me or he's trying to like chase me, not like literally chase me, but
Yeah,
he's
yeah, yeah,
trying
yeah.
to get me to date him. So
Yeah.
like dating apps with men, things move much faster, right? They're going to talk to you quick and then they're like, "Hey, let's go on a date." Everything's super fast. You don't really have to put a lot of work into it, but with women, it's like the total opposite. I actually got in the situation where I was dating another bisexual woman and she is so beautiful. Like we both are very femme women. And for 3 months, we just both like just didn't make a move. Like we
Three
just for
months.
3 whole months, Charmeé. It was like insane. Like we were both
That's a
like
lot of days. Isn't
a
that like
lot of
90
days.
days? How
Yes.
many
And
hours is that? That's crazy.
it's insane. Because we both like wanted to make a move, but we were like, wait, who does it? Who's the person who's gonna do this? And I mean, that wasn't like my experience with every queer person that I've dated, but something about like another person who maybe had an experience with men before me, we both had the same like, oh wait, I don't want to like intimidate this person. So I
Yeah.
don't have you ever had that kind of experience before?
Yeah, I did, especially when I was like first starting out. I was really like, who makes the first move? Who does the whole like and I think like there's, we're socialized for I
Mhm.
think we're like socialized and like bred and like brainwashed into heteronormativity to the point where we know the dance. We know the move. The guy says this first, then we say this and we have to act coy because we don't want to come off too slutty. But then, once he makes the move, then we can like go full. Like we know we've been brainwashed enough to know how heteronormativity works.
Right.
um, so I thought I was like when I first came out, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna put that template onto this queer template, and it's gonna work out great, right? Nah, because
Not
you're
at all.
you're both like, okay, what do we do? But what I've really learned, and what cis men have that I'm not jealous of because I have it now, is audacity. They have the audacity to say some stuff, and so I just go
True.
into queer situations like, why wouldn't she be flirting with me? Like, why not? Why not me? Why wouldn't it be me? Why wouldn't she be flirting with me? So that already puts me in this level of like, okay, and respectfully, obviously a no is a no. We know this because men can be so freaking creepy and weird,
Hmm.
and I hate that for us. But having the confidence to say like, no, like why wouldn't she be flirting with me? Why not? Why not me? Why not me? And so that completely changed everything. And once I unlocked that and put that, I mean, I don't always have that bad bitch like mode activated. Like sometimes I'm like, I'm ugly and stupid. But when that bad bitch activation mode is on and I press the button, I'm like, okay, get in this mindset. Then it's like, okay, like we can skip past the astrology, baby. Let's go to tea, like let's go out, let's have a good time, let's see what the vibes are. I'm not afraid to make the first move because I'm like, I would want somebody to make the first move. So like, why can't I be that person? So
True, true. Although
yeah.
I will say it hurts more to get rejected by someone queer than just your average cis dude. So, but I
Yeah,
will also say, is it the end of the world? No, somebody else will like eat it up and then flirt back with you. So, I think
exactly.
your advice is like perfect, like having the confidence in yourself and like, who wouldn't want to flirt with me? I'm a hot
Yeah.
bisexual. So,
Yeah, exactly.
mhm.
Exactly. Exactly. Now do I feel that way all the time? No, of course I don't feel like that all the time, but when it comes to like somebody that I'm like, actually I'm really super interested in you, I really actually like you a lot. why not be the initiator? Why not be like, hey,
Mm.
let's go get some tea, or hey, let's go for a walk, or let's see what the vibes are. Oh, let me like graze past you, or oh, let me like pretend to like be like yawning and like put my arm over you, and like, you know, like there are little moves that I've learned along the way. I don't want to say too much because I don't want anybody to take all my moves. But
Fair, fair.
but it's definitely nice to really like activate like that confidence level to be like, no, I why wouldn't they want me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's like such a good takeaway. But Charmy, it's been so nice having you on the podcast. I'm so glad that we got to talk about your book about bi astrology, which everyone needs to follow immediately after listening to this. And if they don't, then you suck. But is there anything you'd like to plug before we part ways?
I would say, yeah, Confessions of a Bisexual is really fun and really exciting. What I think a lot of people don't know about the book is that it's a woman-owned publisher. All the things in making my book was like women, femme forward and sustainable, and I just think that's really cool. And I don't talk enough about that. So yeah, that my podcast, my TikTok. I've got a TikTok. I'm doing the
Yes.
TikToks now. So yeah.
I need to get on TikTok. I've got to do that at some point. I'm
It's
like a little
fun.
terrified of it.
There's reasons to be. There's a lot of mean people, but
Yes.
there's a lot of really nice people as well.
Yes, and also it's another just source of media for getting queer content as you're
Exactly.
on your coming out journey. So
Exactly.
exactly. Well, thank you so much, Charmy.
Thank you. This is exciting. I love this conversation.
Me too. Oh, this was such a great episode. I had so much fun talking to Charmy. She's such a lovely guest. Please make sure that you're following Bi Astrology, following her account, subscribing to her podcast, and of course, you can support the Bi Agenda by also subscribing and following my podcast. Also, make sure you're rating and reviewing. Your feedback is super important to me, and I love to hear from you. I've had people reach out to me on Instagram as well. Our Instagram is bisexual behavior. If you have any feedback, you can DM us there. So thank you all for listening. We'll see you next month. Bye!